Hey everyone, welcome back. So a while back I asked you guys to drop some questions if you have any, because we have reached 6,000 subscribers. In today's videos I'm going to be answering your questions, so get cozy, get yourself something to drink, and we will dive right in. I moved the camera a little bit because then you can see my beautiful Toulouse here right next to me. Let me get the questions because they're on my phone. Question number 1. I know you have your love for books and music, but do you watch a lot of television or movies? If so, any favorites? What's the one classic that you would like to see made into a movie? First of all, yes, I do appreciate movies, TV shows. Let me put the camera back because he's gone. My favorite movies, yes, I have a lot of favorite movies. The Lord of the Rings, for example, is one of my all-time favorite movies. It's actually my favorite movie. I think Peter Jackson did a wonderful job. Secondly, I love the animated version of The Hunchback of Notre Dame. As you know, this is my favorite book of all time. I grew up watching that animated version, and now that I'm older, I still appreciate that version so much. I think they did a wonderful job. Next on my list is Pirates of the Caribbean. Jack Sparrow was my teenage crush. I loved him, and I still do. I think he's amazing, and I love those movies to pieces. I also love Crimson Peak. I don't know if you heard of this movie. I also really love the book. The book came after the movie, and it's a wonderful movie. I love it. And then, of course, Pride and Prejudice from 2005 with Keira Knightley. Oh my gosh, I love that movie so much. I also love the Hobbit movies by Peter Jackson. Legends of the Fall. Oh my gosh, this is such an underrated movie. I hear no one talk about it. It's an old one, but it has me in tears every time. And I also wrote down The Last Samurai. I probably forgot a lot of great movies, and like Gladiator and stuff. Such great movies. As for TV shows, there is one sitcom show in particular that I adore, that I love to pieces, and that is The Big Bang Theory. I think it's brilliant. I also love How I Met Your Mother. It's also a very good TV show. A show where the screenwriting really blew me away was Breaking Bad. I think that story was just brilliantly written. I also appreciated Spartacus, which is a historical TV show. The Queen's Gambit is a recent one that I saw on Netflix, and I really loved it. And also a very new one, Die Kaiserin, and season 2 is almost coming this November. Question number 2. How do you personally determine what a classic is versus just older literature, and do you gravitate toward one or the other? And 2, have you read anything by H. Rider Haggard? First of all, how do I determine what a classic is? I'm going to delve deeper into that question later, because someone asked that very question, but in a slightly different way. But I do want to say that everything written before the 1900s that is still in print is something that I will call a classic and worth reading. Secondly, yes, I tried to read King Solomon's Mines by Haggard. I gave up halfway because I really wasn't enjoying it at all. I didn't like the writing style, and I also didn't really like the story, so that didn't work out for me. Next question. What is your process for putting a video together? Do you plan out each part for different days, or do you schedule one day to follow through the entire process of putting your video together? So I keep a list of all the video ideas that I have. I put it in a sheet, and every week I try to decide which one I'm going to prepare and write the script for. I script every video. I do this once or twice a week, and it takes about an hour to script a video. I do not script and immediately record. I do that on separate times, on separate days of the week. I usually record on a Thursday or a Tuesday, and yeah, it just depends on when I have the time to block out 1 hour to record. Since I record my videos in my living room, I always clean up everything after every record because I don't like a cluttered space. I always put everything away. So whenever I want to record, it takes some setup time. I put on my tripod, my camera, my microphone, my laptop, my editing program, everything that I need. And then it takes about an hour to record a video depending on the length. And then of course I need to edit that video in my editing program. I usually do that on the weekends or whenever I find 2 to 3 hours of time to really go ahead and edit the video. The next question, how did your love for classic literature start? What inspired it, or which book or author was the catalyst? So let me first answer that one question because there's another one. My love for classics started actually with The Picture of Dorian Gray. I never stopped reading Oscar Wilde since then. He's one of my favorite authors. I've read all of his works, his novel, his theater plays, and I'm working through his letters. But he's absolutely amazing. And I was blown away by The Picture of Dorian Gray. And I started picking up more books like Anna Karenina was also one of the first classics that I picked up, and it blew me away. And you asked a second question, what are your favorite books, authors in other genres of literature like fantasy, sci-fi, horror? Do you even read that kind of fiction? I've read all kinds of books in the past, especially fantasy. And if you've been following me for a while, you know that I love the works of J.R.R. Tolkien. But I also love Brandon Sanderson as a fantasy author. And I want to say used to love because it's been a while since I've read them, but I love the works of Laini Taylor as well. But I must say it's been a long time since I've read them, and I would have to reread them to really make up my mind if I still love them. You know what? I'm gonna grab some books from the shelf and show you. Okay, so I picked the first novels I could find on my shelf that aren't classics. So first of all, Pandora. This is a historical fiction novel. It is so good. I enjoy it so much. And this reminds me that I actually need to give it a reread. Also, look at that cover. It's amazing. Yeah, I'm gonna probably reread this in 2025. Here is Brandon Sanderson. This is my favorite novel of him. Elantris, I think it's his best one. I know that he's least proud of this one, but I think it's amazing. I loved it so much. I've read it twice, and I actually feel like reading it a third time. This was the series that I was talking about by Laini Taylor. I've read it when I was, 18. And a couple of years ago, there was a limited edition that came with signed copies. This is actually a signed one. And I'm so happy with it. And I really need to reread them because I know I loved them so much. So yeah, I also need to give those a reread. And then the first thriller that I found was The Honey and the Sting. It also has a kind of historical tint, but it's mainly thriller vibes. So I really enjoyed this one. It was a cover buy, obviously, look at it. But I loved this story so much, and I also want to reread it. Oh yeah, and I had to show you Crimson Peak. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, I found it. This is Crimson Peak. And this is the, oh my gosh, I had to run upstairs because it wasn't on my bookshelf downstairs. This is the cover, also the cover of the movie, which I love very much, highly recommend. And I also saw The Pillars of the Earth on the shelf, which is also historical fiction, quite modern. It was written in, I think, somewhere in the 1990s. And I'm actually currently reading book 3 in this series. Really enjoying it. The next question, what was your inspiration to start a YouTube channel? I just wanted to talk about books. I cannot imagine talking to someone I know so deeply about the books that I read because they would be so bored. So yeah, it just comes down to the fact that I wanted to talk about books deeply. And by talking about books and putting out literature stuff, I was hoping to inspire people to read more or to start their reading journey. Next question, do you appreciate the language of film and TV? As a child, I was privileged to own a collection of books, so in many respects, movies, dramas, and documentaries filled that gap. As an author, I greatly appreciate films and TV shows. It takes less time to analyze the story than reading a book, because reading a book takes about 6 hours and watching a movie takes only 2. And so I love analyzing the story, the characters. It's so much simpler to do in a movie. I also love documentaries. I sometimes watch them on Netflix and I always enjoy them a lot. Which authors inspired you to become a writer? Actually, I cannot really say which authors inspired me. It was my love for reading which inspired me. I always loved reading. When I was a child, my parents read to me, and then I started reading on my own, and I loved it so much. And then at a certain point, I started making my own stories. Even when I was 10 years old, I wrote stories. That's what I did. What was your major in university and the university name? I did not go to any university. Next question. Did you ever base any one of your travels on the books you're reading? If so, do you plan ahead with the idea to visit as many places mentioned in the book? I actually plan my travels first and then I pick the books that I want to read. For example, I recently traveled to Italy. We went from city to city, and I've been reading The Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri and The Story of My Life by Casanova, which was a biography, really good, highly recommend. So yeah, I plan my travels first and then I choose the books that I want to read. Next question, what defines the potential for a book to become or be a classic in your opinion? This was the question I was referring to. So in 1850, there was a Frenchman who answered this question, and I honestly cannot say it any better, so I'm just going to quote this man. It is from Charles Augustin Sainte-Beuve, and he stated, "The idea of a classic implies something that has continuance and consistency, and which produces unity and tradition, fashions and transmits itself, and endures. A true classic, as I should like to hear it defined, is an author who has enriched the human mind, increased its treasure, and caused it to advance a step, who has discovered some moral and not equivocal truth, or revealed some eternal passion in the heart, where all seemed known and discovered, who has expressed his thought, observation, or invention in no matter what form, only provided it be broad and great, refined and sensible, sane and beautiful in itself, who has spoken to all in his own peculiar style, a style which is found to be also that of the whole world, a style new without neologism, new and old, easily contemporary with all time." I just love that so much. And also, Italo Calvino said in an essay, "Why read the classics?" He answered, "A classic is a book that has never finished saying what it has to say." The next question. Which 5 books would you take with you to a desert island where you have to stay for a long time? Of course, I would take The Lord of the Rings. We have to have a fantasy, right? I would also take 2 books by Victor Hugo, Les Misérables and Notre Dame de Paris. You know, those are my top favorite books. I would also take The Picture of Dorian Gray, of course, and Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. I could reread those books forever, so I will not get bored on that island. I was wondering what your reason is for reading English translations of books instead of translations into your first language. I find it a bit sad to say, but I have never fallen in love with my own language. Everything I read in English is better, sounds better, feels more natural. It's more poetic. And I've heard other people say this about their native language too. I don't know if you feel the same way. Let's say you're from Germany and you read a German book and then an English book. Which one feels better? Which one feels more right? I know a lot of people who aren't native English prefer English books, and yeah, it's just the way it is. The next question. Do you have a favorite place out of all the places you've traveled to? I've traveled a lot, and my 3 favorite cities of all time are Venice, Paris, and Vienna. Where in Middle Earth would you most like to live and why? I really love this question. I have the heart of a hobbit. I would love the lifestyle of a hobbit. I've been to Hobbiton and I said to my husband, I want to live here. However, I think I would prefer the view and the setting of a place like Rivendell. And it's just based purely on the view. I would also like being an elf. Anyway, what do you feel classic literature offers that is special in comparison to contemporary works? This is a question by Ruben from To Readers It May Concern. Thank you, Ruben. This is a great question, and I think it is the depth, the language, the quality, the historical significance, and the impact of classic literature that really makes me so obsessed with it. And of course, I partly also answered that question when I was quoting the Frenchman about what makes a classic. His second question is, what have been some of your favorite things about doing BookTube so far? What have you learned about yourself and how have you changed through this experience? My absolute favorite thing about BookTube is a community, the warm, loving, supporting community. It's just amazing to talk to like-minded people. I've met so many amazing people. I've had so many brilliant conversations, and there's just no other place to share my love for literature on this level. Now, in what way did BookTube change me? It changed me in a way that I now read novels much more deeply, because I read them and I know that I will be talking about it later, so I pay attention more, I read more deeply, I take notes, and it just transformed my whole reading experience and I would never go back. Next question, when someone is talking to you, do you visualize their words as writing on the page? Not at all. You read a lot and have published books. How do you keep your love and passion alive? I don't feel like I have to keep my love for literature alive, because literature is my heart. It is there and I cannot imagine it ever going away. Reading is like breathing, and there is no life without books. The final question, what is your philosophy on life? I believe in continuous learning and improving yourself. I try to live my life to the fullest, and I romanticize everything and I love it. I don't want to have any regrets, so I worked hard on creating the life that I want to live. There we go. So I hope you enjoyed the answers to your questions. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. I adore you, and I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next week.